Today, by popular demand, we're going to be taking a look at Tamatori-hime, her story, her impact on traditional Japanese tattooing, and we're also going to be taking a look at several exemplary tattoos. Tamatori-hime, or the Jewel-Snatching Princess, was a beautiful woman diver, also known as Ama, who married a powerful member of the Japanese imperial court going by the family name of Fujiwara. When Fujiwara's father died, the Chinese emperor gifted him a priceless pearl, which was stolen by the Dragon King in transit to Japan. Fujiwara shared the news with Tamatori-hime, who, being a professional diver, decided to dive into the sea, knife in hand, to where the Dragon King lived in order to recover the pearl. Now, she was successful in retrieving the pearl, but in doing so, the Dragon King and his army pursued her, and she was forced to cut open a breast and stuff the pearl inside because legend had it that dragons were repulsed by blood. When Tamatori-hime finally came ashore, she was, of course, dying, and she shared with Fujiwara that the pearl was hidden safely within her breast. Now, the scene of Tamatori-hime escaping with the pearl and a knife in hand has been an extremely popular ukiyo-e and tattoo motif for centuries. She is usually depicted topless, or in some versions also wearing a robe, knife in hand, pearl in hand, and either escaping from or attacking a bunch of different sea creatures like octopus and fish, or even the dragon. Now, Tamatori-hime's story is extremely popular within Japanese folklore because it exemplifies the power of love and the self-sacrifice that people undergo for those that they care about. Tamatori-hime's story has been portrayed in numerous ukiyo-e woodblock prints, and that in turn has, of course, impacted her footprint within the world of traditional Japanese tattooing. Looking at actual tattooing compositions, this first work is by the Belgium-based Horishi, or traditional Japanese tattooer, Horitsukikage. Horitsukikage was actually trained under the master Ikebukuro Horitoshi I, and he employs the traditional tattooing technique of tebori, or the hand poke method. Now, given that this is the first tattooing composition that we're looking at, I will make a comment that applies all across the board, and that is that in most tattooing compositions, you see Tamatori-hime either topless or wearing robes, but you see her with the jewel in hand. You don't actually see her, let's say, crudely stuffing the pearl within her breast. And that is, of course, for aesthetic reasons, for visual reasons. It's not something that, for example, since we're looking at Horitsukikage, it's not something that only he himself chose to pursue, but it's actually something that we see across the board, across most, if not all, Tamatori-hime compositions. Now, in this particular composition by Horitsukikage, you can see a strong Kuniyoshi influence, both in terms of the character design, but also in the color selection. This has been masterfully executed, and if you're curious about Horitsukikage, his background, his approach to traditional tattooing and such, we actually interviewed him as part of the The Figure Behind the Ink interview series, and you can read that interview either in the Waboripedia Instagram page or in the Gonskin website. This second composition that we're looking at is by the New York City-based Chris Wielk, who we also happen to interview as part of the The Figure Behind the Ink interview series, available both in YouTube and in Spotify. And what we see here is a very beautiful rendition of Tamatori-hime in a limited color palette. So this is a great composition because it fuses Chris Wielk's own style with that very traditional look of the limited color palette. You can also see here that this is the robed version of Tamatori-hime, and what the robed version affords the tattooer, the horishi, or the collector is that you can, of course, incorporate patterns and elements within those robes themselves. And what we can see here is that that's exactly what Chris Wielk did, and we have some beautiful floral elements within Tamatori-hime's robes here. This third composition is by legendary Tokyo-based horishi Horitoku. And what we see here is Horitoku's very unique style at play. You can see those very narrow skin breaks that he's known for, and you can also see the white dragon or the gray dragon that he's also very famous for. Now, this is, of course, as you can see, also a robe version of Tamatori-hime, and similar to the stylistic decisions by other horishi such as Chris Wielk that we just looked at. He, of course, implemented floral elements within the robes. Now, this is a very cool piece to show, not only because it's by a legendary horishi, but also because all these compositions that we've seen and that we're about to see go to show how the horishi can make the theme, or in this case, the Tamatori-hime story, their own, with their own elements, with their own unique style and approach. This next piece is by Spain-based David Ramirez, and it's another great composition of the topless version of Tamatori-hime, and it's done very, very beautifully. You can see that even though it follows David Ramirez's own style, it still looks very traditional in its approach to the character design. And when I say traditional in this case, I'm not just referring to the color selection, which is obviously ukiyo-e inspired, but the character design itself within the context of the history of traditional Japanese tattooing. Similarly, this next piece by Diao Tong Yu of China is extremely classic in its look. Not only is it a piece that stylistically is very reminiscent of the older tattooing masters, but also taking a closer look at the composition, you see that there aren't other accompanying elements. You just get Tamatori-hime with her knife and jewel in hand and the dragon, and that's it. Now, this simplicity is also very beautiful and very powerful because it makes you clearly focus on the subject matter, because that's all there is. Now, to round it out with the last two compositions, this particular composition is by the legendary Horihide, and we can see his signature style in display. We can see his signature character design, and then, of course, very beautiful color choices to make this piece really pop and look very, very classic, very, very beautiful. Lastly, I want to close it out by a composition by Horiuno II of the legendary Horiuno family. And what I want to call out here, besides the, of course, very traditional, very classic character composition, is the background itself. The background that we're seeing here, it looks like a canvas of black, is very representative of the times when this particular composition was performed by the master Horiuno II. This piece is not only historically relevant because of the background, because of the character design, because of the horishi who made the composition, but also it's important because it just goes to show how the story of Tamatori-hime has come to be portrayed by horishi from all around the world throughout the years by many different composition styles with their own unique elements and stylistic decisions, all making the story of Tamatori-hime's bravery and acts of selfless love come to life and enrich the culture of traditional Japanese tattooing. Now, to close the video out, we looked at Ukiyo-e Prince by Utagawa Kuniyoshi, as well as 7 tattoo compositions by horishi from all around the world. And what's awesome about the tattoo overview is that we noticed that even though the subject matter is the same, the story of Tamatori-hime, each horishi gave it his own spin, and the compositions came to life in their own way, with their own unique traits, with their own unique elements. And here we can see the richness of traditional Japanese tattooing and how every master can make every composition really his own and can make it a really unique, beautiful, powerful piece. Now, I want to give a special shout out and thanks to all of those who made recommendations on what tattoo compositions to feature. Thank you very much for your suggestions. And if there are any particular topics or themes you'd like me to cover, just drop me a comment, drop me a message, and I'll be happy to look into it. Thank you very much for watching.